So as you can see, I used to work on an ambulance. I worked in an ER and as a medic for a 911 service for many years in a small place, not very busy, called Las Vegas. So every time I tell people this, though, they always have the same question for me. They always ask, so what did you actually do? What happened? And the best way I can sum it up for people is this: hours of boredom punctuated by moments of sheer terror. This quote was actually originally from some soldiers. It's how they summed up their time in the Army, I believe. But it kind of feels the same when you're on call, right? I mean, you get a pager, you're sitting there, maybe doing nothing, maybe until that moment where you're very, very suddenly engaged. When I moved from medicine back into technology, I started looking around and I saw a lot of similarities. As we learned this morning, looking at things from a different point of view, academic or otherwise, can help us learn things. So that's what I'm going to do today. I'm going to walk you through what happens in, as much as there is a typical call in EMS, what happens when someone calls 911, and how you can use those things the next time you're on call, or if you're sitting at that back table, maybe now. Hopefully not. So I want to start by laying this out. And I think in software, we are very prone to this idea. As engineers, we think that if we were to just dig in, if we could just understand what it is that happened, we could just change the code a little bit, we could just build some system, and we could make sure that this would never happen again. Even for some of us who are doing postmortems, we have action items. I'm sure some of you have Slack messages, backlogs that say, oh, make sure X never happens again, right? You have an incident, and someone says, why did we not make sure? Or why don't we make sure this never happens again? And the problem with that is that you can't do that. I would strongly recommend it if you could, but unfortunately you can't. Our systems, like life, is messy and complex, and complex systems by their nature have their problems come from the way things interact with each other. It's not just the pieces and parts that you need to take care of to make sure that they are safe or work together. It's all those interactions that you can't predict. So we can't really make sure something never happens again. And oftentimes, spending our time and energy and focus on doing that is going to lead us down the wrong path and have us do the wrong things. And to software engineers, this is often something that they really dislike hearing. And I'm sure some of you are in that boat, but I want to give you an example of where this is certainly the case. And we have a photo here. On the left is, I think his name is John Lambert from Ohio City, Ohio. These photos are about in the 1890s or so. Lambert, he made a car that you can see up there. It's really the first sort of car that looked a lot like we would know it. It was a single engine, gasoline powered, everything like that. He'd actually made it. It is the Lambert car. So we would expect him to be the subject matter expert in this car. The reason he was in Ohio was to try to get more people to buy this car. Spoiler alert, no one did. But we see him going out for a drive, and he would drive it around and try to get people to do it. So we would expect him to be just the most expert in this car, its handling, its behavior. But Ohio City, Ohio has the dubious distinction, and I believe they brag about it on their website, of being the location of the first known modern car accident. There's literally one car, and he managed to get in a car accident. He's driving along, and he hits a tree root and swerves and hits a tree. Everyone's okay. But when we look at that accident pattern, we see it today, right? I mean, maybe you've been an offender bender yourself, you know someone else who has swerved to miss something, hit a stationary object. we know that this continues to occur. There's been really nothing in, 130 years to indicate to us that we can make sure car accidents are never going to happen again. That would be just a ridiculous approach. If we had focused all our energy on making sure they didn't happen again, we would still be stuck with that Lambert car, no seatbelts, nothing. So instead what we can do is we can practice our response. We can't predict what is going to happen. We have some idea of what accidents look like, right? We know what a car accident as a general class of failure is. We have seen some repeated ones, the fender bender, swerve to miss, things like that we just talked about. But people are inventing very new and very different ways of getting into car accidents all the time. There is this water drainage area near my house because when it rains in Las Vegas, it rains very quickly, and the ground is not used to soaking up water. So we have all these channels in town to shunt it elsewhere because we live in the desert and we don't know what to do with it. Get it away, get it away. So I never really thought about it, but there is this place in my neighborhood, and somehow someone had turned their car upside down over the sidewalk into this. And they were okay, but to this day I cannot figure out how they did it. They didn't hit the sidewalk, they didn't hurt the lamppost. They took out the gate and ended up upside down in a side drainage ditch. They're always inventing new ways for this to work. The funny thing is I actually saw that happen twice. Different people, no idea. So what we can focus on instead is making those events that will occur less impactful, being better prepared to respond to them. Just because we can't get rid of the accident or even certain classes of failure does not eliminate or demean the work we do as responders. Quite the opposite. It's kind of funny, we use this term in software a lot, when we're on call, and maybe you've used it, or you have a buddy and they're getting paged a lot. You say, "Oh, how's it going?" And what do they say? They say, "Oh, it's just been a lot of firefighting," which I never understood, having worked with firefighters and things, because I never knew a firefighter to go, "Oh crap, I wonder if I'm going to get paged today." Of course you're going to get paged. You're in a firehouse. Why do we call it firefighting? I don't know, but that's what we can strive for, is to change that mode, is that yes, things will go wrong. Of course they will, right? That is why we are equipped to respond. And I think that that is a big difference in software, is that software is the only discipline, and Andy is going to have the opportunity to talk to you about it later. It's the only discipline where we say, you have a tangential skill set, you're really good at JavaScript, welcome to emergency response. Here's a pager, there is millions of dollars of infrastructure, this will work out fine. It's good, it's good. You can use console log, here's millions of dollars of infrastructure you're on call for. This pager, it'll solve everything, it's fine. We don't do that to anyone else. Can you imagine if we did that to firefighters, doctors? "Oh yeah, is this your first surgery?" "Well, I've actually never done surgery before. I hear there's some docs over here. Don't worry, I'll follow them very closely." We expect this to work, and it can't, so we have to practice our response. And it is the only place that it makes sense for us to devote our time and energy, is learning from the incidents that do occur, and then improving our response, making them less impactful, making it so that when they do occur, we feel ready. We are more ready to respond. And then the things that do happen don't harm us as much. So the first way most of us get involved in that sort of response is when you get paged, right? And the funny thing about getting paged is it seems to be the same in every industry. We used to call it dispatch, which I define as you get a small amount of information, sometimes it's even true. You ever get a message and it's like, "Oh, this log is growing," and you're like, "That's fine." It was not fine. What they tell you is just a small amount of information. It may not actually have much to do with what the effects in the system are really going to be. This also happens with people. People tell 911 dispatchers the weirdest things that have no relation to the problem at all. You think it's bad when someone files a bug report that doesn't make sense? Listen to 911 dispatch tapes. No clue why they did this, but it happens. What we can do, though, is use this as a place for us, as kind of a marker to breathe, try to calm down, and get ready to respond. Oftentimes, I've heard people in software sort of demean their work as responders, either to themselves or each other. Say, oh, well, no one's going to die, right? It's just a computer, right? But our brains don't know that, right? This urgency, this sudden alert, all of these things are the same in our brain. It doesn't matter whether or not it is a crucial system or not. Your physiological response is the same. It's understandable. Some people get beyond it. Some people always have a little bit of it. It's okay. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. It's okay to be nervous, to feel anxious or even excited. It is okay. That physiological response comes from your brain's fight or flight, dumping that adrenaline into you. Your brain doesn't know that, oh, it's just a log server. We don't care about that. We've seen this a dozen times, right? Especially if you have the same alert notification all the time. How many of you have heard a very similar tone and you like freeze up or you do something weird and you hear one? Yeah, I've been there. I had a physical pager and I never realized it till after I'd left. It turns out, walking through the middle of the casino, there was just the right configuration of slot machines that sounded just like my pager. To this day, I still don't understand how it worked, but I sat there like this, reaching for my belt where my pager used to be, for probably a good solid minute. These things get embedded in your brain. It's not your fault. It's because we are squishy humans. Don't let people demean the work or the experience of responding. It is very difficult work. It is something that we can suffer from regardless of whether or not it is life or death or not. So this is our spot to sort of breathe, do what we need to do, and get into it. We used to call the scene size up, which is just what is going on and how bad is it? Because again, for many people, and this can happen when incidents are activated by customers or by certain engineers, to them, it is most likely horrible, right? But as responders, we may not have the same view. We have a different skill set. Maybe to us, this thing that is causing a lot of bad outcome is actually easy to fix or difficult to fix. Or vice versa. Hey, I'm seeing this one weird thing, and that means the world's on fire. You know that. But they don't. So this is our chance to kind of calibrate the information they told us, our worldview, against theirs. That's not to say that their view isn't valid. It's simply to assess what it means to us. This is kind of like, what does the terrain look like, we might say? How many responders are you going to need? You might look at something and go, oh, I know that I'm at least going to need, to activate some sort of incident response plan. I'm going to need someone from a database. I'm going to need something like that. This is where we start to hone down some of the infinite possibilities into an idea of where we're going to start going. What kind of, we might, in EMS, so what kind of equipment do I need? Oh, well, I know I need to get a security token. Oh, well, I know I need to get someone who has access to a certain system. We can start to lay out these things in our mind. And when you're doing this and you start to engage other people, and you have that excitement or the nervousness or the distraction, when you have that energy, it can be very difficult. You ever get a hold of someone else and they kind of calmly go, all right, tell me what's going on. And you do this to people in bug tickets and all these things. So you'd think that it would be really easy to just come up with everything they need to know, right? You do that and then you freeze up or you miss something. So we had an acronym, OPQRST, because apparently the only thing we can trust that medics will know is the alphabet in order. And it's normally used to assess something acute, like typically some sort of pain or an acute medical thing. But I find that it works really well for just in the moment remembering the information that you will probably need to activate other responders. And it goes like this, onset. So what were you doing before this happened? What was the customer doing? What was the system doing before this happened? Oh, well, we were just backing up the database. Oh, we were just erasing a bunch of things, or we were writing to disk. What was happening? Provocation is not provoke your coworkers, but if that's you may do that as well. But provocation is anything. Does something make it worse or better? Is there a workaround already present? Are users, whether they're customers, other engineers, are they working around it? Are they finding that certain things they do make it worse? Oh, everyone's refreshing and this is getting worse. Is there something that makes it worse or better? What is the quality of it? What does it feel like for the user? Is it slowness? Is it sudden crashing, where it used to be a gentle process? What is it? And then, does it radiate out to other systems? Is there a specific region, cloud or otherwise, you see it affecting? How bad is it? What is the severity of it? Is it 1 user, 10 users, all users? What is it? And how long has it been going on? So this is just a way of helping you focus a little bit more on the incident, making sure you have just the core relevant information. You may not even be able to get all of this at first, but it's typically a good reflection of what you'll probably need as you activate more and more responders depending on how you do incident response at your company or your team. I want to give you a caveat to this, though. I'm saying is, treat your patient, not the monitor. You ever look at a Grafana dashboard and become instantly suspicious because it looks fine? And it shouldn't, right? Oftentimes we have this intuition that there should be something here. I expect that line to be either very spiky or very flat. I expect something to be wrong because either through what we see on a website, what we see in our app, what we see in other parts of our system, we have suspicions. We have this expertise that we are pattern matching against, and we suspect something is wrong. You may not even be able to articulate it. It doesn't mean that it's not valid, though. Oftentimes our intuition is that expertise at work, saying, something's not right here. I can't quite name it yet. So we said, treat your patient, not the monitor. There's some people who you hook them up to EKG, their heart rate's fine, blood pressure's fine, they're breathing okay, but they look sick. Something is going on. So if you think that there is something going on with the system, trust your intuition, work through it, investigate. Don't dismiss it. Very oftentimes, they've done studies that say, what makes an expert an expert? And one of the things that it does is gives you that whole database in your head of things to pattern match against, even if you can't articulate it. They actually looked at a study of new drivers versus experienced drivers and found this. What they found was that new drivers, they did some sort of eye tracking. No idea how they did that. But what they did was they looked at where their eyes were. And new drivers look everywhere, it turns out, because they don't know what they're supposed to look at. Everything is a potential source of hazard for them. So they look everywhere because they don't know. Experienced drivers, on the other hand, have developed a set of patterns or things like that. They look at the car who's getting ready to pull out. You ever see someone on the highway and you just know they're going to pull in front of you, right? You know it's going to happen. They didn't do anything exactly, but you automatically look there. That's that pattern matching at work, and you shouldn't necessarily ignore that. Now, is it right all the time? No, but I would say don't just dismiss that out of hand. And on the subject of patients, don't talk to patients about severity. What this means for us in software, do not litigate whether or not this is a Sev 1, 1.5, or Sev 3.14 on a call. No one cares. It doesn't matter. This is not the time or place. We've all had those people. Oh, well, if this should be a Sev 2.6 because then I don't care. Do what you need to do to respond. Can you imagine if we did this to people in real life? You call 911, I mean, you've already decided by the very nature of calling 911 that this is somehow out of your control, right? Can you imagine you call 911 and they go, well, I don't know. It might actually be a Sev 2. We'll see about sending someone out. We don't know yet. Maybe we will. You call 911, the dispatch argues with you, tries to convince you it's fine. I don't think we do that. I mean, something may have changed since I left, but I don't think we do that. But we do it in software to people. There will be a time to discuss it later. It's part of our after-incident review, post-mortem, what have you. And that is a chance for us to educate people about maybe other resources. Or, as we find in medicine, maybe the reason that they are activating this incident response plan is because there aren't other resources. Maybe this is a clue to us that they need other resources. They need some sort of non-emergency help. People call 911 for non-emergencies all the time. It's because they have nowhere else to go, and they don't know what to do. So by the same token, we can know our resources. When you are out in the field, it is typically depending on your city, you and your partner in a certain service area. It's the two of you, but you have to know what is available to you. This can be in major cities. It can be like, can you call a helicopter? Maybe, depends on where you are. Are you allowed to? What information do you have available to you? There's actually some ambulances in some cities, we used to call them supervisor trucks. They have a computer in the front that tells you where every ambulance in the city is, but not everyone has access to that. Our dashboards are often the same way. You ever stumble upon like a hidden cache of dashboards that some engineer made and just didn't share them, but it like gives you a perfect picture of the system? Those are his dashboards. And we have this too, so we need to be aware of what resources are available to us. Are there docs? Or was there a cruciferous vegetable who just like would not document it? Or like, is it only cryptic hints? I don't know. What did you mean, broccoli? What did you mean? No, I have no idea. So we have to know that. And sometimes that is just knowing that, oh, I can't count on these docs. Knowing that, well, I know there's some docs there. I'm a little bit mistrustful of them. They maybe aren't my first result. Even just knowing that about your resources is valuable. Oh, I know if I call upon this team or this person, well, their response time is longer, so I know that this is a thing. That's just something that you can learn through practice and also using those practice sessions to create experience, or if you have the opportunity, hopefully you have some sort of onboarding program as you onboard people to on-call and they get to develop that experience. I'll say that communication matters. So once you've decided, you probably are not resolving this by yourself for larger confusing incidents. Since we are these experts in our systems, when it's bad enough to page us, oftentimes there's something weird going on. And how we communicate and how we interact with other responders is going to drastically shape how effective we can be. This is the same idea behind when we have certain forms of incident command. We have incident commanders, we have different roles, scribe, what have you, depending on how you label them. In software, though, we actually talk about communication a lot. Most of you have probably heard the phrase over-communicate. I don't get that. I don't think anyone has ever told me what that means. They might give some over-communicate. I don't know what to do with that. If I was over-communicating and it was effective, doesn't that mean it's the right amount of communication? I don't know. I don't know what to do with that advice, but we say it all the time in software. We say, oh, well, as a team, we'll just over-communicate. On incident response, over-communicate. So what does that actually mean? Well, one way of doing this is actually what's called closed-loop communication. And it sounds really annoying in a numbered list, but is really helpful. It's where I say something to you. Typically, we'll use this around if you're in incident command or you're about to take an action. I might say, I'm going to restart a service, the logging service. And you say, OK, so you're going to restart the logging service. And I say, yes. And that gives a chance for me to make sure that you understand, at least to a degree, what it is that I'm going to do. Maybe you just heard, I'm going to restart a service. Crap, which one? Right, that gives us that chance to resync. Obviously, this takes some amount of overhead. We can't do it all the time, but certainly there are times where we can, and times where it's appropriate. Again, typically when you're about to take an action that is maybe going to be difficult to undo, or if you can't see that in the future, before you do some sort of intervention. I'm also going to say narrate your actions. And this is not like I am reaching for the keyboard, I am typing letters. What this looks like in medicine, I put an example up there, is just as you're with your partner, maybe you find someone unconscious, this happens, you say, I saw that they had a scalp laceration. I'm concerned that the reason they're unconscious is some sort of trauma. What I'm going to do is some sort of trauma sweep, and I'll call out to you anything that I find. You know, we're not waiting for the incident commander or other responders to come to us and say, what are you doing? Wait, where are you? We're giving them the opportunity to get updated about it. Finally, I want to say don't become part of the emergency. We used to say this because part of the job was literally to drive fast and in weird ways. There's times people don't do that well. But for us, I think what that means is doing whatever it is you need to do to recover from on-call, from your incident response. We cannot continue to respond if we destroy ourselves doing it. We need to, for individuals and for our teams and for organizations, find a way to make this sustainable. We are the sources of resilience and adaptation in our systems. We can cover those gaps where Bash cannot, surprise. We have that ability, but we cannot continue to use it if we destroy ourselves in the process. So maybe that's take all your PTO. Find out what unlimited PTO really means. You know, whatever it is for you, make sure you're doing it. You know, get more sleep, whatever it happens to be. And I understand not everyone is in an organization where they can do this. And if you're not, I would say reach out to your team and find ways to make that happen. So here's everything I learned. Accidents will continue to happen. Get some basic information to orient yourself. Do not talk to patients about severity. Decide how you can address the issue. Know what role you're responding in. Know what resources are available, and don't become part of the emergency. If you want to see some slides, there they are, or I write about resilience and emergencies at that website. Thank you.